Have you ever seen a leader who's an absolute rock star in one job, but then they move to a new team and it's a total disaster? Well, there's a reason for that. It turns out, great leadership isn't some fixed trait you're born with. It's all about adapting. Today, we're going to unpack that exact idea, situational leadership, by looking at 4 essential academic theories that'll show you exactly how it works.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the big foundational idea that ties all of this together. Then we'll dive into 3 really different, really powerful models that put that idea into practice. And to wrap it all up, we'll look at how you can use these theories as a kind of toolkit to figure out your own leadership challenges. Let's get into it.
All right, first things first. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of any specific theory, we have to get our heads around the core concept. And it's a powerful one. Effective leadership is not, and I repeat, not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. It's all about a dynamic response to what's happening right here, right now.
At its heart, the situational approach basically says there is no single best way to lead, period. Success isn't just about how charismatic or smart a leader is. No, it's about this beautiful interplay between the leader, the people they're leading, and the specific context they're in. You gotta have all 3 working together. It's like a 3-part harmony.
You know, we can actually boil that whole idea down into a really simple but kind of profound formula. SL equals FL FS. So successful leadership, that's a function of the leader, the follower, and the situation. The big takeaway here is that all 3 of these things are connected. You can't just focus on being a better leader and ignore the other 2 parts. They all have to be in sync. So this naturally leads to the million-dollar question, right? If the context is everything, how in the world do you actually analyze the situation you're in? And what's so cool is that each theory we're about to look at gives you a different lens to answer that very question, which brings us right to our first model. Okay, so let's dig into the life cycle theory. This one makes a really bold claim. It says that the single most important variable you need to look at in any leadership situation is the maturity level of your followers. It's all about the people. Now, I want to be super clear here. When this theory talks about maturity, it has nothing to do with age. It's all about readiness for a specific task. How capable is a person of doing their job on their own, and how motivated are they to take on more and succeed? That's the key thing a leader needs to figure out.
Let's make this real. Imagine you just hired a new salesperson. They're at stage 1. Enthusiastic, maybe, but they don't know the ropes. According to this theory, your style has to be high task and low relationship. You don't need to be their best friend right now. You need to be direct. Tell them exactly what to do, how to do it, step by step. Okay, a few weeks go by. Your salesperson is getting the hang of it. Their maturity is increasing, so your style has to shift too. Now you move to high task and high relationship. You're still giving a lot of guidance, but you're also starting to build that rapport, that trust. You're coaching them.
Now we're getting somewhere. The salesperson is confident, capable, and can handle most things you throw at them. This is where your role takes a huge turn. The right style is now high relationship and low task. You can back off the micromanaging and focus on being a supportive mentor, a sounding board.
And finally, we get to the top level. Your salesperson is now a seasoned pro, an expert. So your style evolves one last time to low task and low relationship. Now that doesn't mean you ignore them. It means you delegate, you empower them, you trust them to run their own show, and you're just there for backup if they need you. All right, get ready for a bit of a mind bender, because our next theory totally flips the script. Fiedler's contingency theory asks a fascinating question. What if instead of trying to change the leader, we should be changing the situation to fit the leader?
This quote from the man himself, Fred Fiedler, says it all. His argument was that a leader's core style is pretty fixed. It's part of who they are. So trying to get a task-focused leader to suddenly become a people person is probably not going to work. The smarter move, put that leader in a situation where their natural style can shine.
So how do we define a situation according to Fiedler? He broke it down into 3 things you can actually measure. First, leader-member relations. Pretty simple. Do people like and trust their leader? Second, task structure. Is the work crystal clear, or is it vague and ambiguous? And third, position power. Does the leader have the official authority to reward and punish? When you combine those 3 factors, good or poor relations, high or weak structure, strong or weak power, you get 8 possible combinations. Fiedler called these octants. You can think of this table as a map of basically every possible leadership scenario, from the absolute best case scenario to the absolute worst.
And here is the punchline. This is what Fiedler discovered. Leaders who are naturally relationship-oriented, the permissive, considerate types, they do best in the middle-of-the-road situations, where they have moderate control.
But the task-oriented leaders, the controlling, structuring types, they actually excel at the extremes when things are either going great or when they're a total mess.
All right, on to our final model, the path-goal theory. This one gives us yet another lens to look through. It sees the leader's main job as a facilitator, almost like a guide, whose job is to clear the path so their followers can reach their goals.
The name really says it all, doesn't it? Path, goal. The leader's job is to clarify the path to the goal. This is all about motivation. It's about making sure your people see a clear, direct line from the hard work they put in to the rewards they really want. You remove the obstacles. You light up the way.
So how do you do that? Well, the path goal theory gives you this awesome leadership toolkit with 4 distinct behaviors you can use. You can be directive, just like we saw before. You can be supportive, focusing on people's well-being. You can be participative, bringing the team into the decision-making process. Or you can be achievement-oriented, where you set ambitious goals because you believe in your team. So, the trick is knowing which tool to pull out of the toolkit, right? It's all about matching your behavior to the specific need of the follower and the task. If your team is green and the job is confusing, you gotta be directive. If the work is stressful and people are losing confidence, you gotta be supportive. See how it works? You adapt your behavior to clear the path.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. We've looked at 3 very different, very powerful ways to think about situational leadership. So that brings us to the big question. How does this all fit together, and how do you choose which approach is right for you?
You know, the most important thing to realize is that these theories aren't competing to be the one true theory. They're just focusing on different parts of the puzzle. The life cycle theory zooms in on the follower and says, adapt your style. Fiedler's theory zooms in on the context and says, change the situation. And path goal theory zooms in on the task and says, clarify the path.
And that's really the power of what we've talked about. These aren't just dry academic ideas. They are practical tools. They're different lenses you can pop onto to get a clearer view of a problem and figure out the best way to move forward. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What leadership situation are you in right now? And which of these lenses is going to help you see it most clearly?